Anyway, this is a WILF meeting tonight, and our WILF meeting, WILF has a program of archiving the personal histories of activists, and we've done a few. I think we interviewed Shirley, and we interviewed Joan Goddard, and Rowan, I think you're on the list. We haven't interviewed you yet. Lois Fiedler is on the list, and I need to hurry and get to her and get her history. And so that's what this program is about. So once we show this video, it will be, what will happen to it, Rowan?
Well, we're recording this meeting. I will take the parts of the meeting that are not the video. I'll put the original video in so that any lag that happens for us will not be on YouTube. I always put any videos, you know, in the Poor People's Campaign, we always start with music. I put the music video in. I do not use the streamed version. So I want nice wrappers of our granny singing or our introduction of Barbie and Barbie's answers and comments at the end, because she said she'll come on and be with us. And I will edit that into a final video and put it on our YouTube channel under our playlist of monthly meetings. We have quite a few monthly meetings over the last 2 years that are on our YouTube channel. And so great information. If you weren't able to make those meetings, there's some really good programming, if I do say so myself. Although it's mostly Paula to thank for the programming. She's a champion at finding good speakers.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are several other people whose pictures I see who would very well be videoed and recorded and put on the YouTube channel also.
Yes.
Oh, I just mentioned a few.
Yes, I did. So there are more. There are more activists among us. All right. Welcome to everyone to the WILF meeting. Let's just quickly, WILF is about creating community as well. So I will introduce myself. I will ask another person to introduce themselves and them to ask another person. So we'll just go around and everybody gets to say their name. I'm Paula Rochelle, and I'd like Catherine to say hello. Catherine?
I'm Catherine Hedges.
No.
Reverend Rowan?
Would you like to ask someone else?
She did. She asked me. She did.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Rowan. She, her. I'm on unceded Tamian land in downtown San Jose. And I'd love to hear from Karen and Amy.
I'm Amy, and how about Julia?
I'm Julia, and I will call on Charlotte because I haven't seen her for such a long time.
Hi, Julia. I'm Charlotte Casey. I just came from the Peace Vigil downtown. Barbie wasn't there today,
Oh,
but I'm assured that she will be zooming in.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shirley, and it's nice to see you all. I see some familiar faces and some who are new. I think select Sally.
Hi, I'm Sally McElravy, and Barbie is joining us momentarily. I think she's coming down the hallway, and she'll be ready to join us. So I will call on Jane Krejci.
hello, I'm Jane Krejci, friend of Barbie's and Paula and Sally. And let's see, Essie.
Hi, my name is Essie and I'm living in San Diego now. I'm missing all my San Jose friends a lot. I just found one WILF member today here, Susie, and we are going to get together one day for lunch. She lives nearby, which is good news. Hi. I'll give the phone to Miss Joan Goddard.
Hi, everybody. Really good to see all you folks, some of whom are local and some of whom are
Remember this?
Barby's relatives and friends. It's great. I live in Campbell and I'm glad to see everybody here. So Penny, otherwise known as Portia, otherwise known as Penny, you're muted. You're going to talk to us. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Penny Gage with the Raging Grannies, and it's nice to be here. Let's see, I will call on who else hasn't?
Barbie is just here.
Sally?
Barbie is here.
Hi.
There she be. Right next to me.
Michelle and Lisa and Craig's iPhone.
Michelle, then.
Hi, everybody. Michelle Mashburn, she, her. I'm on unceded Ohlone land, Tamian and Muekma Ohlone. Good to be here. Thanks.
Lisa?
Hi, this is Lisa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
But I just opened my camera. But anyway, I'm excited to be here and it's nice to see all of you. And a special hello to our guest of honor, Barbie.
You know that life is just about showing up.
And then we have Craig's iPhone.
There, now I'm on.
Who is Craig's iPhone?
Oh, maybe Craig from New York. Oh, New York, her Barbie's son.
All right. Well, this is in the tradition, in the best tradition of WILPF. We start our meetings with Raging Grannies singing in chorus. Okay, you can't do that on Zoom, folks. So the best you can do is everyone to mute yourself. Everybody mute except Rowan, who is going to lead us in these songs. Now, everybody sing out once you're muted to your heart's content, because we won't be able to hear you. Now, these songs have all been chosen, especially for today's program. We're pretty good at picking songs that go just for the program. So I'm going to share my screen.
You know this?
And here are the words, but now everybody has to mute yourself, including me. And Rowan, here we go.
Okay, our first song is Realize the Dream from the Triangle branch of the Raging Grannies. We're the Raging Grannies and it's turning our hair gray to think that men in suits are taking all our rights away. We fought this fight before and now we fight again today. Not one step back, no way. They want to take us back in time when bigots ruled the land, when women, blacks, and poor folks from the voting booths were banned. But this is our democracy, and this is our demand. Not one step back, no way. No more residents arrested. For 50 years now we've protested to realize the dream and gain democracy for all. Not one step back, no way. Do they think that we don't know just what their scheming laws have done? How redistricting now is how they got the votes they won. Now they're passing voting laws that make it hard for everyone. Not one step back, no way. We voted all our lives. There's not a struggle we have missed, but they want to just ignore us and pretend we don't exist. Once again, our rights are threatened and we're seriously pissed. Not one step back, no way. No more residents arrested. For 50 years now we've protested to gain a true democracy with equal rights for all. Not one step back, no way. We've got to get together, young and old and black and white, the unemployed and union folks, and work with all our might to realize the dream and to keep our hard-earned rights. Not one step back, no way. No more residents arrested. protested. For 50 years now we've protested to gain a true democracy with equal rights for all. Not one step back, no way. Sorry. So this is a song, the words are by Vicki Ryder, but the gaggle is Rochester SoFlo. Death, death unending, military spending, what a waste, what a waste. Reinstate some sanity, spend it for humanity, invest in jobs, invest in peace. Let's build schools instead of bombs. Let's feed the poor, let's feed the poor. Don't spend all our taxes to fight the evil axis. Invest in schools, invest in peace. Missile shields and nuclear weapons, what a waste, what a waste. While we're busy making war, we're neglecting our own poor. Invest in health, invest in peace. Richest nation in the world, what a joke. Don't make me choke. Our kids are being left behind. How can people be so blind? Invest in kids, invest in peace.
Yay.
Paula.
Yay, everyone. Oh, I hope you sang your hearts out. So let me introduce the program for tonight. In collecting the history of our activists, you need an interviewer, so I signed up. And I went to had the pleasure of going to Barbie's house. I've been 3 times and sat in her living room and had a chance to really hear her history. It was quite a delightful experience for me as the interviewer. And what we have now is about 50 plus or minus minutes of that much longer. Kudos to Rowan for getting out all the extraneous stuff. And we will watch this. And then Barbie, you're here. So we hope you'll answer questions when we've seen it, and that you'll be here to answer questions. Now, as I said earlier, it will make the streaming less jumpy if everyone turns off your video. Now, do you know how to do that? You go over to the video button and it says stop video. Oh, look at that. So here I go. But first of all, let me introduce the person who did the technology and is really responsible for all of this. Rowan, who gets my deepest appreciation and applause. Rowan?
Yay.
All right, here's the video.
Barby Ulmer. My maiden name was Cherney. And my activism started when I was very, very young, when my parents would take me to the Labor Day parade in San Francisco.
Oh. So what year were you born?
1929.
1920.
November.
Okay, November what?
24th.
Okay. So the labor parades, what years about were they?
This is where I'm not good. I don't remember dates. But let's say I'm 90 now, and I was maybe 5 or 6.
Okay, mid-30s.
Okay.
Mid-30s. And so after those first experiences of activism, what came next?
Well, when I was in school, and especially in college, we created marches and vigils for peace and for equality.
How old were you? What in school? What does that mean? High school?
High school and college.
Okay.
Yeah. I just remember feeling that I was privileged and that I should use that privilege to help others.
Okay. So these were the years, pre-war years? Or during the war?
Oh, probably some pre and some during.
Okay. What do you remember about the war?
I was appalled at the whole idea that people weren't given the opportunity to sit down and talk to each other and solve problems that way. And that's when I began to be very aware that profit was helping foster wars.
In your teens? In your teens you
Yeah.
became aware? Wow. So how did you get so aware?
Well, I just looked around and said, who's profiting from this? Because people don't normally kill each other. At least I didn't think they did. Or should.
So what came after the war? What kind of activism were you involved in then?
Let's see, the war ended in 46, 45. I was still a kid in 45. I remember, I'm a twin, so I often say we because we did a lot of stuff together. And I think that, having somebody who was like-minded and active helped make me who I am. Because in the beginning, I wasn't alone. And sometimes I've been alone later on. But founding the Peace Center, essentially I just moved by myself and did it. And then we gathered other people together. But in the beginning, when I had my sister, I wasn't alone. And, twins communicate in the womb. At least I've always thought that. And so I've always felt that I was not alone, that I had a companion who agreed with me.
In your early activism, what form did it take? What did you do?
Well, I think the first things we did were actually I found WILPF.
Tell me more.
And I found a community of women who agreed with me and were working for peace. And so I joined them and became very active. And I was the youngest of anybody in WILPF. And so just because of my age or lack of it, they made me president and then state president, and I spent and I was also active in American Friends Service Committee. I had volunteered, and part of the time I was actually paid by AFSC. So I had connections in Washington, and I was privileged to be sent there to act both for AFSC and WILPF. And that was a real privilege.
How did you find WILPF? This was the days before the internet. And how did you find WILPF? Do you remember?
Well, somehow I met Florence Bird. She was active in WILPF. And that's, I don't know how I found her. I can't remember that. It was a long time ago.
So your activism locally, you said you became president. What did that mean in those days?
Oh, it meant that we'd plan activities and invite other organizations to join with us. We were in the know of what was going on in Sacramento and in Washington, and we'd join whenever we could.
You'd join, like you'd drive up to Sacramento?
Sometimes we'd do that, and sometimes we'd organize something locally at the same time.
What did those things look like? What did those organized activities look like locally back when, in the early days?
Well, they were either vigils or marches.
Okay. And what kind of causes were you organizing for?
Oh my God. How long do you have to talk to me?
Just tell me.
We were involved in so many causes. I mean, equality, peace, criminal justice, anti-discrimination, you name it. And we could see the connection between these. I mean, we saw the discrimination against Black and brown people and what that led to in terms of criminal justice, or rather criminal injustice.
And so were your vigils and marches in front of buildings at special days? I mean, how did you...
The federal building. Sometimes we'd join with the Palo Alto branch when they were having something that needed augmenting. But it was, most often it was either local or doing something that was being done across the country that we could do here, having a march or a vigil or something using the same slogans and so forth to help people understand it's not just us, it's nationwide.
Mm-hmm. And so did WILPF organize these, or did AFC, American Friends, the ones you participated in?
Either or both.
Both, okay.
Yeah. AFSC was very, very active at that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it was in front of the federal building in San Jose,
yeah,
which was a different building than it is now. And so who joined you? I mean, who were the people, the names you remember?
That's very difficult. I'm not good at remembering names. But of course, Florence Bird was my initial contact. And Frankie Hartstein, this was a long time ago.
Who else? Who else were you working closely with?
Well, those two, yeah. Yeah, Frankie's, oh, I don't know where that is. I've got some artwork from Frankie's son, Max.
So speaking of children, did you have children at this time? And
Oh yeah, our kids were born in 40. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We'll ask them. We'll ask them when they were born. So, and how about Vic? How did that play out in your life?
We were like this. I mean, we shared everything. We shared our opinions and our activism and our love of the children, and we were both teachers, and it was made in heaven. I miss him today.
How did you meet?
Singing at UC. I was in treble clef and he was in glee club. So the two groups sang some songs by themselves and some together.
And at UC, at Berkeley?
Yeah.
You went to Berkeley?
Yeah.
What was your education about?
I got a teaching credential and participated in vigils and walks and so forth.
At Cal?
Yeah.
This would have been in the early 50s, maybe?
Yeah.
Was it as active then as it was in the 60s? What was it like?
It grew in the 50s to the 60s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was growing then.
So when you were at Cal and you were in vigils and doing stuff, what was going on then? Was it the same kind of things about equality and peace and criminal justice and anti-discrimination?
Yeah.
Same kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's always been.
Okay. This is before the 1954 school desegregation even. So was Berkeley, what was the racial mix there?
Not as much as it is now, but it was beginning.
So it was mostly looked like you?
Mostly, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's changed a lot.
Oh, yes.
Changed a lot. So, speaking of changing, it doesn't sound like your activism has changed its focus over the years.
Not really. I mean, we haven't gotten peace. We haven't gotten anti-discrimination yet. We still have to keep working on it.
Well, equality, we've had progress, right?
Not as much as I'd like to see.
What would you like to see?
Well, I'd like to leave a world for my kids and grandkids that honored everyone. And that when you looked at a group working for peace and you looked at a group working for justice, that in many ways they were integrated. And I mean, there were people in both groups. That's what I meant by integrated, but they were also diverse. That's what I would like to see, a world that embraced diversity. And everyone had opportunities like I did.
So you and Vic created something called Our Developing World. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we had traveled. How did I first get to Europe? I can't remember, but at any rate, before we were married, we each separately hitchhiked around Europe. Oh, we had gone to a Danish folk high school. That was it. And when that year was over, Vic had gone the year before I did, and he kept writing and saying, I think you'd really like this program. And so he went off hitchhiking around Europe, and I went to spend that year in Denmark. And then I went hitchhiking around Europe. What that gave me was knowing that I could do these things by myself, and that there were others who were working for the same causes. And I learned Danish and was able to go to a Danish folk high school, which is a unique school for adults that brings people together from urban and rural situations, which in Denmark is very rare. Well, not so much now, thanks to this program, but at that time, unless you went to a Danish folk high school, if you were urban, you didn't know anybody in the rural areas, and vice versa. So my experience in Denmark led to a much more open and an open perspective and a positive perspective that this was good and we should try to replicate it. So unlike most Americans who think the rest of the world should follow us, I learned that we could learn from other countries. And I still think we can and should.
And so you had this experience, but what motivated you to start your nonprofit?
Well, I think it was mostly the idea of being able to take people to so-called developing countries, to realize that we could learn from them. So that was the motivation to begin with. And of course, we had met these people and knew how much they could offer us and how willing they were and how, in a way, it was unique for them to find Americans who thought they could learn from them.
Wow. So what year? Do you remember when you started Our Developing World?
I really can't.
What about trips you remember that you took with Our Developing World?
Oh my. We went to China, to other countries in Southeast Asia. We went to East Germany and West Germany.
You've been to Cuba. You went to Cuba many times.
Oh, yes. I went there by myself the first time with my friend Joseph Muti, who knew a lot of people there and had lived there. And I thought, this is an experience other people should have. And so we started leading tours to Cuba along with Joseph. And that was eye-opening for a lot of people who had, they'd heard the anti-propaganda and believed it. And then they realized, my gosh, they've got free health care. It's things like that that open people to learn from others.
So all of this really restored you for the next one.
Absolutely. People are amazing. If they're happy with something they've been able to accomplish, they are so willing to share. This is invigorating. And they'll share their disappointments too and show how they learned from them. That also is an important learning. Oh, yeah, I organized the draft counseling here. We got CCCO to come down and train us. And for 10 years of my life, I didn't get much sleep because I helped so many young men talk through their beliefs so they could convince their draft boards that they were true conscientious objectors. But it just exhausted me for 10 years. It's not, I didn't have words to give them. I was there to listen to what they felt they believed and to help them become convincing. So if they had to come up to their draft boards, they could do a good job for themselves. And that was a very deep experience because you're helping somebody really probe not just what they believed, but why they believed that, what in their background, who in their background had a role to play. It was very, very moving.
So you were the organizer of that effort in Santa Clara County?
Yeah.
Do you remember who worked with you and who was else?
Well, Shodi. Okay. Lisa Calvelage. Eileen Hutchinson. She, her husband taught at State. I can't remember where she taught. Those of us doing it were well aware of how difficult this was, not merely for us, but for the people we were dealing with. You're not normally put in a position where you have to explain your beliefs and prove that you really believe them.
So Barbie, talk a little bit about the founding of the Peace Center, the San Jose Peace Center. What was your involvement? It was 1957. What happened? How did that come to be?
Well, it was clear that we needed a place so that it wasn't just WILPF getting together, but all peace and justice work had a place. They could leave the signs, they could make more signs, and all the things that were done could have a home and could have a storage place. So we went looking, and Shorty Collins was wonderful 6'3" Baptist minister who gave his life to peace and justice, and he helped us find a place, and it really made a difference because WILPF could store stuff, vigilers could store their signs, we could have meetings, and we didn't have to figure out where it was going to be because everybody knew the Peace Center. So it was really a great step forward.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your first place wasn't the place on South 7th Street?
No. No, it certainly wasn't. I'm sure I'm leaving out some, but there was, at one point, we had a space on the second floor of 2nd Avenue and I don't know what. And it just, second floor doesn't work.
And
so
a storefront also?
Yeah, Alden Campen was a realtor with downtown property, and he let us have a storefront. That made a huge difference. Really was a huge step forward. And I remember meeting one of our city council persons from San Jose City Council, just amazed that we had a space. And, it really was a move forward.
Wonderful. And so how did you raise the funds to get the money to buy the building?
I can't tell you much about that because that's what I'm the poorest at. I'm just not a fundraiser. But Pete Seeger was out, and somehow I had gotten to know, I knew Jenny Wells Vincent. She was a friend of Vic's family. She's in New Mexico, and she's a singer, a folk singer. And so somehow we had a concert with Jenny and Pete, and they were both good at getting people to sing together, which is a wonderful way to build spirit. And we had one fundraiser with them, and I don't know, somehow there was enough money to do what we needed to do. But I can't tell you the details because that's not where I come from.
Where you come from is the activist. And part of your activism, let me just mention a couple and then you tell the stories. So there was part of being with Lisa Caldelage, part of the Napalm Ladies. What was that about?
We were protesting having a napalm station in San Jose. And Lisa was one of the major protesters. She was there every time, all the time. And can't remember whether she was arrested once.
I don't know.
Were you?
No, I wasn't. I've never been arrested. I guess that's why I'm living so long. I have to have that experience.
So, but some of the activism that you did wasn't just U.S. activism. What other things did you and Vic do?
Well, we led what we called reality tours to little known countries, so people could see what U.S. politics and policies were affecting poor people in the world. That we had to rethink what we did and how we did it and how it affected others. And Vic and I started leading these reality tours to so-called developing countries. And the focus was on people and development, because all of our travel was based on that. And people came home changed. They suddenly realized the world they were living in was not the one that they thought they had been living in. And it created a lot of activism.
So, yeah.
So, so Barbie, you just pointed out the ballot that's on the wall behind your head. Talk about that a little bit. Being a monitor, is that what they're called at the South African elections?
Yeah, and this was when Nelson Mandela was elected, the first free and fair election that South Africa had had. And no, it's this one.
I know. It's all coming apart.
This was the ballot. We were official observers to the election. And it was interesting when, I don't know who decided the order that people would be on the ballot, because it's not alphabetical. It's not alphabetical by their parties. At any rate, Mandela pointed here and said, "That's not me." The head of the Pan-African Congress, PAC, had his hair tinted and styled like Mandela.
It was actually down here.
Yeah, here's Mandela.
And a lot of people who were voting were not necessarily literate in the language of the ballots, so that's why they just had the pictures. So based on the photographs.
And the fact that he was on top, people weren't necessarily literate, so they didn't necessarily know what these stood for. I mean, ANC is way down here. So that was quite an experience.
So what was it like? What did you do as an official observer?
We helped people get to the voting booth. Sometimes when they were disabled, they needed help to get there. And since most of them had never voted before, we sort of worked them through the process that they would be going through. And it was quite soulful to do that work here for people who had never, ever voted before on anything. Can you imagine?
And how did you get to be an observer? How did that come about?
Well, we'd been going over there for years and joining in their marches and so forth. So we knew a lot of people, and they asked us. We stood with Black Sash. In fact, Black Sash was a women's organization that was one of the very, very, very few integrated organizations. And they would stand, I think it was on Fridays, they would stand on a corner with black sashes across their chests and banners, trying to help people realize that everybody would be better off if everybody were better off. So that was an amazing experience for us.
So Barbie, while you were involved in all of this, were you still involved in WILPF?
Oh yeah. In fact, I went to a WILPF Congress somewhere in Europe. I can't remember where. And then from there, I went down to South Africa.
And you were in Bogota. There was a conference there. And you went to the women's conference in Beijing.
Yeah.
And you most recently went to Ghana just before the pandemic.
Right.
So, yeah.
I was very, very fortunate to be able to get subsidized to do this traveling, because I just felt it wasn't for me, it was for a representative of this country to have that international experience and exposure, so that people knew that there were people like us who cared.
So you were in your late 80s when you did that, if I recall.
Ghana.
Ghana.
Oh, okay, yeah, Ghana, 80. Okay.
And the others were in the earlier part of your life.
Yeah.
So what about the time when you were in Washington, D.C., and they were going to storm the Pentagon? What was that about?
Well, it just happened that I was there, I think, for an AFSC meeting, and the storming the Pentagon was being planned. And so as long as I was there, I felt I should be part of it.
So what was the issue? What was the issue, and who were the groups that were storming? Was WILPF one of them?
Oh, yeah. There were a lot of different groups. There were Black groups. Yeah, I don't remember the details. But it was clear that it was a Black-led protest. And it was one of the first few, which was very important for WILPF to be part of.
And were you still involved locally as well as nationally when you were involved internationally with WILPF?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was sent to a WILPF International meeting in Europe. I can't remember where. WILPF wasn't never has been a very strongly financed organization, but people helped me get there, and we talked about what I should be emphasizing when I was there, so that people realized that the U.S. was concerned and not just to rule the world.
So Barbie, your activism also extended to education. What are the threads there in education?
Well, I've taught preschool through university. And let me just say that preschool is the most important place to teach. And I was fortunate that Betty Pick started the observation nursery school, and she wanted teachers who had taught but never taught preschool, so she could train us to do that. And I just felt this is the basis for people's beliefs for the rest of their lives. And it was an important place to be. So I was very fortunate to have, people come into my life that were doing things that were appropriate to move me along. I taught ESL for a long time. And, well, there are things here in this house from some of my students. They were the most appreciative students I've ever had. They, I would teach them a little conversation to have in a store. Excuse me, where is the blah blah? We'd practice that, and then we'd go to a store, and each person had something that they were looking for. And when they came out of that, they were all glowing because people had understood them, and they had understood the answers. I knew what could be more rewarding.
So what did you do at the university level?
Well, I taught student teachers. They had to do a year of student teaching. So I trained them and helped them look for more opportunities to be a part of the community.
So Barbie, there's a long thread of activism and social justice and all this work that you've done. So what keeps you motivated? You go on Fridays down to the vigils still. What motivates?
That's what life is about. It's about showing up. And that's a phrase I've just recently learned, but I've lived by it. If you don't show up, poof, nothing happens. If you show up, next time somebody else will show up. And eventually, change happens. You have to be patient, which is not my greatest. I'm not a very patient person.
So how did you sustain yourself if you're not patient and all this takes time?
With other people. I mean, that's what did it. Hope is the last thing to die.
You still have hope?
But this is a hard time. It's a very hard time. I mean, people like Trump. I am not a violent person, but I would love to have him die quickly, painlessly, tomorrow.
And your other causes. So that's because you have these 5 basic causes. Equality. How is that looking today?
Equality, we don't have it. It's one of the things we're working for. Green Circle was a program in schools that helped kids realize they're part of a whole circle of people. And they could make things happen if they worked together. I'm always hopeful.
You went into schools with that, right?
Yeah.
Different classrooms.
Yeah. We'd go into one school and the team would take 1 or 2 classes so that all of the classes had the same program so they could carry it on.
That's the anti-discrimination work, because that's one of your causes. So it was part of the anti-discrimination.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Well, so another of your causes is peace. How are we doing?
Well, there are some countries that have programs that use peaceful solutions for their problems, but not enough of them, and certainly not ours. So you have to build with what you've got. And it's a hard job.
It is. Criminal justice, another one of your causes. How are we doing?
We're not doing well. Unfortunately, discrimination is worse, I think, today than it was 20 years ago. And we're not doing very well. We have pockets where we're doing better. It's a matter of education from the kindergarten or preschool through the university, and it's going to be constant. It's hard to keep that going.
WILPF is known for being a multifaceted organization, without a single focus. It's got all these different ones. So it sounds like WILPF really fit for you.
Oh, yes, that's why I joined. Yeah.
What would you say to young people about WILPF?
Come to us for support. We want to help you.
You got anything else you want to add? Anything we've forgotten?
I know it's a long, hard road, but it's so important. We've just got to keep on keeping on, like John Lewis said.
And show up, like Barby said.
No, I didn't say it, but somebody did.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Back to you, Paula.
Wow.
Yes, she is. She's there with Sally.
Barbie's still here, so feel free to turn your cameras on so we can see you, because that's how I'll know if you have a question for Barbie. So first of all, please help me give a big hand to Barbie. And to our tech maven, I have not seen the video until today. Okay, Rowan, you did a marvelous job. As you can tell, there were trucks going by, there were people walking through. Rowan, you did a fabulous job of creating a
good job interviewing her.
Yeah.
Thank you. I enjoyed interviewing Barbie. We did have kind of a warm up, so I knew some things to ask her. I'll just tell you, I didn't know all of those things, but I did know some things to ask her. So Barbie's with us, and I'm going to ask Sally to unmute so that we can have Barbie. First of all, Barbie, let's just hear from you. There you are. How was that for you?
Well, it just made me more grateful for WILPF, because a lot of the experiences I had would not have been possible if I hadn't found WILPF.
I think that message comes across loud and clearly, Barbie. It really does. So how about some questions? Does anyone have a question for Barbie? Rowan and I will try to see your hands. I see Julia's hand, and Julia, I know you have to close your camera off in order to speak. So Julia?
Barbie, I was wondering, when you were 5 at the protest, were your mother and father with you, and were they involved in protesting? And I bet your mother couldn't even vote back then, huh? So.
Wow. That is good.
We go on marches together as a family. And as soon as women were able to vote, I voted. Because, I mean, my mom would be voting.
All right. Thank you, Julia. How about other questions? Does anyone else have a question you want to ask? Okay, Shirley, unmute yourself.
I don't have a question so much as to mention that my daughter, Sally Kinoshita, went with Barbie and Vic to several reality tours, including South Africa when she was 20, and later on she went to, I think, Laos, Southeast Asia. And, you know, my daughter has always admired Vic and Barbie, and I never quite understood why, although I've known Barbie for a long time. And what the interview today really brought home to me how fabulous this couple is. And I want to thank Barbie so much for all the peace and justice efforts that you've made for so long, and your dedication to that movement. So it's very inspiring.
And your daughter was wonderful. She was so eager to do things that would make a difference. She was just right on top of experiences all the time. She's just marvelous.
Oh, thank you.
We have a question from Amy or Karen. I see your hand, and I also see the paw there raising its hand. Okay, Amy or Karen, got a question?
I was wondering a couple things. Were you involved in the Peace Fair, starting the Peace Fair?
Peace Fair.
What about it?
Were you involved in it?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. And how did you find the Collins house?
How did we find the volunteers?
The Collins house.
Collins house.
The Peace Center.
Oh. Gosh, I don't.
Oh, well.
It says that it was donated by Shorty Collins. Was that where they lived?
Alden Campen was a realtor with property downtown. And he was very supportive of our work. So he helped make that happen.
Oh, nice.
Thanks for the question, Amy. How about other people have any questions of Barbie? You've got her now, she's there. Thank you to Sally for making that happen.
It's my pleasure.
Let's see, what do we do if we want to, put our hand up?
I got you, Joan. Your next
Okay.
question.
Okay, so Barbie, you, one of the things about the Peace Fair, of course, was that you had lots and lots of things that you had brought back from those reality tours with our developing world. And so what was you didn't talk about the things that you brought back that you bought, I guess, in those countries, and that helped the people who had made them, and then you sold them, and that brought back some money, maybe more, whatever. So what's the story on the sales of things that you brought back from the our developing world tours?
Well, first of all, when craftspeople make things, they need to have buyers. So obviously we could fill that. And we could also talk with them about the making of the crafts and how people were trained to do that and so forth and so on. And then we would share that with the people who looked at the crafts when we had them on display. So it was a way of bringing people together who otherwise would have no connections at all. And that's what we're all about.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world of people and we need to work together.
Wow. Yeah, that's so much more more wonderful than just, oh, these people are selling some things, let's buy them and take them back, and that'll help the people who made them, and it'll be wonderful for the people who buy them. But the people information, wow, yeah, I had not known about that. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. We have time for one more. Sally, you got a question?
Well, I just would like to make a commentary about how I got to know Barbie, and it was through the wonderful sales at her homes, where I was just enchanted with all these marvelous crafts that came from all over the world. And then she enticed me to go to Cuba with her. And so we just had an amazing time because we lived with the families. We got to talk to farmers, we got to talk to doctors, we got to talk to educators, we got to talk to artists. And every place we went to was just vital with all this information about the Cubans. But also what was wonderful is Barbie likes to have fun too. And we all went snorkeling one day, and Barbie snorkeled right along with all of us. So it was just a fabulous combination.
I think we heard that. So that was the last trip, about in 2019?
No, she went on one more.
Did I don't
Yeah,
think
she went with Carol and Sandy.
okay.
Carol
Yeah.
and Sandy. And
I hope to go next year.
Look at that. She's gonna run another reality trip. Okay, so Essie, anyway, we're running out of time. So if anybody has one more urgent question, we can handle that, and then we need to wrap up this meeting. But anybody got any other comments or questions for Barb?
I just have a comment.
Sure.
I'm Craig in New York, and I'm a Luddite, so I didn't know how to unmute myself. And so earlier in the show, I was called out as a bomber, but that's not who I am. I'm just the son. And I enjoyed the program very much. Thank you.
Thank you for identifying yourself, Craig. I'm glad you can be here, and there will be access to this on WILF's YouTube account as well. So you will be able to watch it again if you want. And then
Thank you.
I see that Mimi has her hand up. Mimi?
Yes. Hi, it's nice to see everyone. Nice to see Barbie. I shared a booth with her at the Peace Fair in 2019. So at the Peace and Justice Center. So it's nice to see everyone.
So Barbie, I want everybody to give a big round of applause to Barbie and her wonderful 8 or 9 decades. I don't know how many decades, too many decades for me to count. Somewhere back in the 30s when she was 5 years old. Okay, so that's a long time. That's longer than I've been around. So Barbie, and I particularly want to appreciate that you gave your time for this interview and were so open with your story. That's a really big deal to be willing to give us your story, and it will now be on YouTube, and I believe WILF is creating an archive of these, so it will be archived as well. Another big shout out to Rowan, who made magic out of the mess I sent her. Good for Rowan. Woohoo!
You're a marvelous interviewer. It wasn't hard, and I loved you both. It was great to do it.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so we close our meeting with the Raging Grannies singing 2 more songs that are particularly appropriate for Barbie. So I want you to pay, I hope so. Okay, it's time for the Grannies. No more announcements. I hope you hung out long enough. Those who left early missed the Grannies. Okay, you know the routine. You have to mute yourself. Everybody mutes, including me. And I will share my screen and then mute. And just know, these 2 songs were chosen specifically for Barbie.
So this is We Are Not Giving Up by Sarah Williams of the Madison Raging Grannies. And it goes, we're not giving up. We are not ever giving up. We know we're in this struggle for the long haul. We're not giving up. Shoulder to shoulder, we're not giving up. Although we're growing older, we're not giving up. We know we're in this struggle for the long haul. We're not giving up. We ain't sitting crying. We're not giving up. The left is not dying. We're not giving up. We know we're in this struggle for the long haul. We're not giving up. We're not giving up. We are not ever giving up. We know we're in this struggle for the long haul. We're not giving up. We're up against the system. We're not giving up. We still resist them. We're not giving up. We know we're in this struggle for the long haul. We're not giving up. We're not giving up. We are not ever giving up. We know we're in this struggle for the long haul. We're not giving up.
Yay!
And so is Shirley still here? See if I can get somebody else to lead one of these things. No, huh? All righty then. So we did a verse for every one of the themes from Barbie's activism. So this is a particular When We Make Peace for this meeting. When everyone has equal rights when everyone has equal rights. How I want to be in that number, when everyone has equal rights. When we build schools instead of bombs, when we build schools instead of bombs. How I want to be in that number, when we build schools instead of bombs. When we replace the racist system, when we replace the racist system. How I want to be in that number, when we replace the racist system. When we build clinics instead of jails, when we build clinics instead of jails. How I want to be in that number, when we build clinics instead of jails. When we have overcome the climate crisis, when we overcome the climate crisis. How I want to be in that number, when we overcome the climate crisis. When we make peace instead of war, when we make peace instead of war. How I want to be in that number, when we make peace instead of war.
Yay!
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, Rowan. Okay, everyone, thank you for coming to the WILF third Friday of the month in August. This was a hot August night, don't you think? Yes.
Yeah. But
Thank you, Barbie, for showing up tonight for the Q&A, and to Sally for making that happen.
Yes, Barbie. Oh, Barbie.
Thanks to Barbie.
Thank you, Barbie.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Thank you, Barbie. Have a good night.